Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the life and times and career of Mel Daniels. I thought this is really interesting, and this is a 1971 Topps. I love this set. I also love the 1972. Some cards in the 71 are awesome, while at the same time, the same player who may be in the 72 might not be that great. So, like Pete Maravich, for example, I love Pete Maravich's 1971, but I hate his 1972. That's also kind of similar to the 72 for Mel Daniels. I do have that card, but it's not my favorite. So it's not a fan favorite of mine. However, his career I thought was really interesting, and this card was actually not the easiest thing to track down. I do have a lot of cards from both of these sets. I'm not going to complete the sets because, well, I'm kind of lazy, and it just doesn't make any sense for me to do that. But I do kind of like cherry pick specific ball players for those sets. So I have the majority of the Hall of Famers and the stars from both sets, and a few others sprinkled here and there. But for the most part, this is one of my favorite cards in the 1971 set just because of the design, which I absolutely love the design of both of those sets, and just the overall appearance. And I had bought this card not knowing exactly who Mel Daniels was, so I kind of like blinded my way throughout the checklist. And what I usually do is I go by all the players on the checklist, and then I just kind of research all of them. But I kind of like stopped doing that after a while, so I didn't actually get to card number 195. I did, however, look at his stats and everything else after I bought the card. It was not expensive, surprisingly. You can buy a lot of Hall of Famers in these particular sets pretty cheap. Uh, Obviously, like there's a few of them that you are gonna have a really hard time with, but for the most part, I think both of these sets are doable. Wilt Chamberlain, for example, is not going to be easy, either in the 71 or 72. And then there's a few others that are really kind of difficult. At least I had difficulty with the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar cards. I had difficulty with, and a few others. And it was only because of the centering on a lot of these cards is not the greatest in the world. So if you're a centering geek, I am not exactly, or you're into the corners or the crispness of the card, the crispness of the card, um, that could be a concern for you guys. I'm not sure. For me personally, it depends how difficult the card is for me to get a hold of. And I will make considerations whether or not I want that card uh, completely centered. Spencer Haywood, for me, was another very difficult card to kind of find in this set, and I had to grab the card that was off-centered, and the trade-off there was it was cheap, but now I have the Spencer Haywood rookie in my collection. This one, it took me quite a while to actually locate a centered copy, but today I wanted to tell you about Mel Daniels. I kind of feel that he is a neglected Hall of Famer. He is a Hall of Famer. He entered the Hall of Fame in 2012. And before I get on to the articles, I found at least one great article that I'm going to share with you. I am going to go down his statistics here just in case the articles miss a few things because that does happen from time to time. So he is a three-time ABA champion, and the thing is, he's mostly known as an ABA Hall of Famer. So I had to look into this before I get into more of his statistics here. Um, the Pacers were an ABA team. They were founded as an ABA team, and they are one of three teams that went into the NBA And unfortunately, oh yeah, so the ABA NBA merger was in 1976, and the NBA, they would only accept four of the six teams, the Spurs, the Nets, the Nuggets, and the Pacers. And this was at a cost of $3.2 million, the entry fee to enter the NBA. But that left two teams that were out, so they couldn't participate. And that was the St. Louis Spirits and the Kentucky Colonels, which I think both teams were actually really good at one point or another. I think the ABA only lasted for about 9 to 10 years or so. And the Kentucky Colonels, I know of that team because it had Dan Issel in it and a few other Hall of Famers. I think they won like a championship in 1975, and then the St. Louis Spirits had a really great looking jersey from 1975. They also had Freddie Lewis as well, who I'd love to see get in the Hall of Fame. And Freddie Lewis is actually on the Pacers as well. I did a video on him, which a lot of people liked, and I think he's going to be mentioned a little bit in the article here. So, getting back to Mel Daniels' statistics, he is a three-time ABA champion, 1970, 72, and 1973, a two-time ABA MVP, 1969 and 1971, a seven-time ABA All-Star, 68 through 74, and a 1969 ABA All-Star MVP, a four-time All NBA first team in 1968 through 1971, a 1973 All ABA second team, the 1968 ABA Rookie of the Year. Really, really interesting, really impressive, to tell you the truth. A 1968 All Rookie first team, the three-time rebounding champion, 1968, 69, and 1971. And I think that's where he really makes his bones in the ABA is being a rebounding freak, if you will, just a wizard at rebounding. He averages 14.9 rebounds per game, and he's got 9,528 rebounds during his career. And he's also a ABA all-time team member. And I thought this was actually really interesting too. He averaged 18.4 points per game, or 11,778 points. But he's really not known for his assists, and so he's got 1,140 assists, and that averages out to 1.8 assists per game. But I really like his story, and I wanted to share that with you guys today because I think that he's someone who's not really talked about all that much. There are a lot of ABA players who have been kind of forgotten about, and I wanted to kind of like share their stories. There's so many ball players that I want to tell you guys about, but I figured I might as well start with Mel Daniels here and his story. And again, I really love this card, and I'll show you the back. I know I did that before, but if you guys were interested in trying to pick up a couple of these cards for your own collection, the backs look like this. And for the most part, I think you guys can uh, add a bunch of Hall of Famers on the cheap. So let's get on to this article. I think you're going to find it really interesting. This is from the Edmonton Journal, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, November 6th, 2015. Nice guy off court turned warrior when game began. Died Friday, October 30th. He was 71. The Pacers said Daniels died in Sheridan, Indiana. The tremendous outpouring of prayers being sent our way is overwhelming, C.C. Daniels, his widow, said in a statement. We are so grateful for all the love. His charisma, poise, and passion for life, be it horses, basketball, or friends, is a template for us all, his family, and his friends. The ABA's MVP in 1968, 69, and 70, 71, Daniels was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2012. The Pacers retired Daniels' number 34 jersey in 1985. "I'm saddened by the news that Mel Daniels has passed away," said Larry Bird, the Pacers' president of basketball operations. "I have known him since I was in college, and he was one of my coaches. His competitive attitude reflected his success on the floor with the Pacers and the ultimate recognition, a well-deserved induction into the Hall of Fame." The 6'9" former star at New Mexico was the ABA's Rookie of the Year in 1967-68 with the Minnesota Muskies. He was traded to Indiana the following season and played on a championship squads in 1970, 72, and 73, teaming with Roger Brown, Freddie Lewis, Darnell Hillman, George McInnes, and Bob Netkolecki under Hall of Fame coach Bobby Slick Leonard. "We've lost a great one," Leonard said. Gregarious and engaging with a vice grip on his handshake, Daniels averaged 18.7 points and 15.1 rebounds in 628 regular season games in 8 seasons in the ABA with Minnesota, Indiana, and Memphis. In 109 playoff games, he averaged 17.4 points and 14.9 rebounds. He spent a season in Italy and played 11 games in the NBA for the New York Nets in 1976-77. "He was so friendly and kind to everyone," said Terry Coons, a teammate in Minnesota, "but when the game started, he was a warrior." He was a 4-time All-ABA selection, 7-time All-Star, led the league in rebounding 3 times, and holds the league record with 9,494 career rebounds. "Words cannot express the depth of my sadness today," said former Pacers great Reggie Miller, also a Hall of Famer. "Mel Daniels was a father figure, brother, consigliere, and most of all, my Uncle Mel. He helped raise me into the man I am. I hope I made him proud in everything I tried to do on, but more importantly, off the basketball court." Daniels later was an assistant coach, executive, and scout with the Pacers, and was an avid horseman. "Mel was a great friend of mine the whole time I've been in Indiana," said Donnie Walsh, the Pacers' longtime president and current consultant. "He was a big part of the history of the Indiana Pacers. You always knew where Mel stood. He was a great competitor and poet. He was just getting ready to release a book of poems. I loved Mel. I will miss him." Daniels was an assistant coach in Indiana State, where he rejoined former New Mexico coach Bob King during Bird's years at the school. Daniels averaged 20 points and 11.1 rebounds in 3 seasons at New Mexico. He was selected 9th overall by the NBA's Cincinnati Royals in 1967, but went to the ABA with the Muskies. Daniels grew up in Detroit and started at Pershing High School. In addition to his wife, Daniels is survived by his son Mel Daniels Jr., granddaughters Tristan and Chloe, and sisters Vivian and Wanda. There's a lot that I really like about the 1971, 72, and 73 Topps basketball sets. And for starters, it's the design that I really enjoy. And, you can definitely tell what decade this card is from just by looking at it without having to look at the back to see what the date is. Now, the 1973 Topps is a little bit different. It's plain Jane, it's kind of boring. I know that's a really great endorsement of the set, but what it lacks in design, it makes up for with great photography. And the fact that you can pick up a lot of these cards on the cheap, and there are some really great Hall of Famers that you can get, and they're very affordable, I think, for the average collector. These sets are actually sets that you guys can complete pretty cheaply. It's still going to be a little bit of a challenge because you're now facing 50-year-old cards, but if you guys want to put in the effort and the energy, you guys probably can complete at least one of these sets. Um, and I think that's actually great for novice collectors. And I think that's actually great for collectors too, who may have been priced out of baseball. And so they want to get into something else that's cheap, and you have a wide selection of Hall of Famers. So that's where I think the 1971, 72, and 73 Topps basketball sets come in. And again, I really liked to go down the checklist and pick and choose players that I wanted to research. And I did that with a lot of these guys. I just didn't quite do it with Mel Daniels until after I bought the card. And I don't suggest doing that, by the way. If you're going to buy a card for either investment purposes or for sale, always do your homework first before you do that, because you can get into some serious financial problems by not doing your homework or your research on what you are purchasing. Fortunately, though, I didn't buy these cards for a lot of money. The most I ever spent on a 1971 or 72 Topps basketball card was $65, and that was Rick Barry's rookie. For the most part, though, you guys can probably pick out a really nice raw example of a Hall of Famer for like under 80 bucks. So it's not impossible to get a Wilt Chamberlain from the 1971 or 72 set, or the 71 Pete Maravich. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is another great player that you can get really cheap, and I got both of the 71 and 72s for under, I think, 70 bucks. I think even 60 bucks or 58. Whatever the case may be, they were cheap enough that I didn't have to worry about getting ripped off. But you still do have to like do your research on these cards, and it's going to take a little bit of time if you want to try to complete the sets. It's a good challenge, I think. But today, I really wanted to get to Mel Daniels' story, and there are a lot of players like Mel Daniels who just aren't talked about enough. And the ABA specifically has a lot of players that have been neglected over time because it's the ABA. I don't think that there are a whole lot of ABA players that are in the Hall of Fame who spent the majority of their careers in the ABA. I think the ABA was around for like 9 years, or like under 10, just shy of that mark. But a lot of these players did spend a huge chunk of time in the ABA. And I was actually surprised to learn that during the 1970s, the NBA was practically unwatchable. And that was through the early 1980s as well. And there were a lot of TV stations that wouldn't even play basketball games because people were complaining about it, and the play itself in the NBA was so bad. I don't think you had that problem with the ABA, and that's why it lasted as long as it did. But it's got a great history behind it, and its merger is really interesting as well. And I think at some point I'm going to talk more about that merger. But for today, guys, I wanted to get to Mel Daniels and his story, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about him or his cards. If there's any cards of Mel Daniels that you have or you want, let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say as always, and keep the dialogue going here. So, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it. If there's any players too that you want me to talk about, let me know. I may have missed a couple players here and there too. And again, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it as always, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.